Hi everyone, this is Ananya Sharma from Lady Harding Medical College with AIMS rank 7. So how are you feeling to jump from LHMC to AIMS now?
Happy to have made it.
Okay, so we'll be asking a few questions and you let our students know how did you go about them. So when was the year that you passed your MBBS?
I finished my internship in December 2016.
How was your performance during your MBBS curriculum?
I think the first 2 years it was average, and after that above average.
So when did you start your focused PG preparation exactly?
So I joined a foundation course in my third year, but actually on my own I started preparing after internship. Took a drop it. Yeah.
Okay. And who was your basic guidance which led you through the coaching or which led you through the whole preparation? Some students or teachers who guided you?
Mostly my seniors. So a few college seniors, even before starting any subject or going about which coaching or anything. So I used to consult them, and yes, they helped out a lot for every little query. Yeah.
So did you join some? You mentioned that you joined coaching. So which coaching institute did you join?
Actually, I ended up joining multiple coachings because I did a foundation course, then I did a T&D. So yeah, different coaching institutes.
So why multiple? Do you think that one did not suffice?
No, it's not like that. I think if you pick one coaching institute and follow them throughout, it's more than sufficient. It's just that you have to actually follow them. Yeah.
So now we'll be asking you how did you go about different subjects? Subject-wise, we'll go through it. So how did you prepare for anatomy?
Okay, so anatomy, I read actually from BDC itself because that's the thing we've read in first year, so that was the most familiar to me. And I use Netters for the orientation, and make sure that you do embryology and anatomy as well as head and neck. Yeah.
Biochemistry.
Yes, biochemistry basically needs repeated revisions, and biochemistry, everything is almost important. Like you have to go through all of it, especially I think proteins and the electron transport chain and all that. So. Physiology, I used coaching notes, and I also initially read from Arvind Arora and then added it to my coaching notes.
Okay, so you compiled them at one place.
Yeah, like I try to, like if I'm using any coaching notes for any subject, so if I'm going through any guidebook, then I make sure that I write it in the coaching notes, because otherwise there's no use, you're never going to open it again.
Multiple books compile
there's no
it at one place.
You're only going to read what you compile in your notes. So.
Okay. Microbiology.
Micro, I used coaching notes again.
And how did you go about the image-based questions for microbiology?
Image-based questions, actually, even for radiology or microbiology, what I find is that I don't think watching any one image will give you an idea, because I don't even know what I'm looking for in the image, and I may end up getting the wrong idea of what I'm actually looking at in the image. So I tend to Google everything, and it's simply the first page of the Google images, just go through and you'll get an idea of what you actually have to see in the image.
Okay. Pharmacology.
Pharma, I attended Dr. GRG's class and read those notes, and that's it.
That's it, okay. Pathology.
Pathology, again, coaching notes.
Okay. Any important topics which you feel are
path is actually the hematology part is very important, and it gets asked both as images as well as, and because it overlaps with medicine, so you'll be dealing, and as well as pediatrics. So that is a very important part, and general path is also very often asked. Yeah.
Forensic medicine?
Forensic, I read Sumit Seth.
Yeah. Nice, short and crisp.
Yeah, it's exactly, yeah.
Okay. And so how about ENT?
ENT and Optha as well. Actually, I did the coaching notes. And yes, under test and discussion. Test and discussion for every subject in additionally, but yeah, the coaching notes.
Okay. And for PSM?
PSM, I read Vivek Jain. Actually, I picked on the important parts in PSM, which is mostly the epidemiology, the screening part, and biostats. So those are which are actually going to come at the end of the day. So yeah, those.
So coming to the final year, how did you go about medicine?
Okay, so final year, the big 4 subjects are actually very big, so you can't attempt to do do all of them in its entirety. But medicine, I attended Dr. Thameem's class, which was very good, and it's very high yield and sufficient and gives you concepts. And I also followed coaching notes, but then I mostly stuck to Thameem notes. And surgery, again, I did coaching notes. And I did not attempt to do any guidebooks for these subjects because it's too vast. And obs and gyne, again, coaching notes. And pediatrics, mostly the first 10 chapters from Ghai, which we used to do in final year also. And again, some notes, class notes. Yeah.
So how about dermatology?
Dermatology, yeah, I used Dr. Neena Khanna's book for images, and it has a synopsis for every chapter, so use that, and as well as notes.
Notes.
Yeah.
Anesthesia?
Anesthesia, only notes. That's it. Like
That's
it gets asked pretty less actually. So yeah.
Orthopedics?
Orthopedics, I attended ODD, and they make you compile almost your entire ortho in one very little booklet, so that's very useful. I use that. Radio is a lot of googling, so I used coaching notes for but they'll just mention the science, and there's no use reading radio if you're not able to recognize it. So yeah, a lot of Google and Radiopedia, and then psychiatry, again, notes.
Notes. Classic.
Yeah.
So you basically compiled all your textbooks into small notes so that it's easier for quick revision.
If I'm using a guidebook for any subject, then you have to compile it in your notes, otherwise there's no point. Yeah.
There's no point. Yeah. True. So retrospectively now thinking, so how much do you think for a good rank you need to put in effort? Like for how long do you think your preparation should last?
So I think if you're attempting it during internship, then definitely the whole year, because obviously the amount of time you can give is really less. But if you're I don't know, staying home and actually preparing like that, so I think 8 months or something is
8-9
sufficient.
months is good enough. Okay. So how did you structure the time of your study period? Like how did you divide your months and weeks?
So actually, I sort of let a coaching institute do it for me, because then they give you a schedule of test and discussion. So I just try to follow it, and so that's how all my subjects kept getting covered, and because it's in sync with what they're teaching me, so it helps. So by the time the test and discussion ended, so you're sort of at least once through with all your subjects. Even if you've left some parts, that's fine. And then I think we were left with 2 months. And so the plan was to revise twice till 1 month till one mock exam, and then till AIMS.
Okay, so during this preparation, sometimes we end up getting lost. So how did you gauge your performance? Are you doing well or not?
So the tests helped me in the sense that although it was after the week allotted for the subject, so after that, if I give the test, even if I'm doing above average, so I know, or at least I know I've read the right things from the right places. So I remember reading forensic from somewhere else, something random, then giving the test and being completely lost and having a very bad rank. So I realized I need to change my source. So that's something which gives you an idea. Plus, again, the whole mock test, a lot of places hold mock tests before the main exam, so they will give you an idea.
Rough idea
where you stand, but I still say don't take it to heart, because I have had very bad ranks, and immediately after there has been an exam which has had a very different rank. So it's also a little about how you give the exam. Yeah.
Okay, so on day-to-day basis, you've seen both worlds. You've you've prepared during your internship as well as during your drop year. So how did you manage? You didn't.
I initially I started during internship, because initially I think I had PSM as a posting, which was relatively light in our college. But after that, when things got heavy, so I decided it's going neither here nor there. So I was like, okay, we'll properly drop after internship and do it. Yeah.
So you dropped your and planned. Yeah. So how did you go day-wise? How did you plan your time? You were sitting at home.
Yeah, so actually sitting at home is a challenge in itself, because you're going to get very distracted. So what I did was, I think I tapped onto my, primitive reward system of the brain. So you work a certain number of hours, and then there's a certain show on TV you want to watch, so you watch that for half an hour, then you work again 3 hours, and then you get to go to gym for an hour in the evening, and then again you work, and then you get to sleep. So yeah.
So it's not just study all the time.
You have to structure your day. If you don't structure your day, then actually to you also it's going to appear as if, I have the whole day. But when you actually structure it out, it's okay, 3 hours here, 3 hours there, 3 hours there. Only 3 things you can cover. So yeah, that gives you.
that helps you better.
Yeah.
Okay, so for learning and for revision, what different things did you do to increase your efficiency for better learning, for spending your time a little more efficiently?
Okay, for retention, I tend to, I think, almost make images of things happening in my head. Like, I don't know, like for entire immunology, you'll imagine, I don't know, T cells and B cells and them eating things. And so, I don't know, I used to, generally tend to make cartoonized images out of things. That it works for broader concepts. And then, of course, mnemonics, like Dr. JRG gives amazing mnemonics, which sound actually, it sounded silly to me when I first heard them, but that's what I remembered. So,
this little silly thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that always helps. Okay, so like we have a lot of controversial questions which come up and
Yeah.
they take up a lot of time. So how do you solve them? Like,
I don't think you should, okay, the first step is to check a standard textbook. Like, if you have like a medicine doubt, so you go and open Harrison on your own, see the exact sentence, and decide. And then, if it's not there, and if three people are giving you different answers, you choose a source you trust, and that's it. Like, there's no point going on and on about it. Like, yeah.
so were there some specific SRP classes that you joined?
Yeah, I attended ODT for ortho, then a GRG for pharmacology, and a Dr.Thameem's class for medicine. Yeah, 3 of them.
Okay, so how did you prepare during your last days before the exam?
So the last day was actually, like, in my mind, a 20-day or 20-25 days session, where, because there are 19 subjects, so 1 day for each subject, and ideally, like, at least 4 days in the end to go through all the T&D specifically or something, which didn't happen because you keep like spreading on to the other days. So 1 day per subject, and at the end again, it didn't work out and I was still cramming subjects at the last day. But the point is, I think that in the last 15-16 days you should have touched every subject, because if you think you're going to do one subject properly, like way before, and then you're going to do another subject properly, the point is not to do it properly. The point is to touch again what you've seen at the last,
and not go for something new altogether.
Not at all. Whatever you've seen, and you should be flicking through it, and sometimes it's also almost a visual memory that works. So yeah, just touch on everything.
Okay, so how did you plan for the day? Like, on the day of the exam, what did you do? How did you go about it? And how did you keep yourself calm and tackle the stress?
Did not keep myself calm, but on the day, the plan was to get up early and read biochemistry, because I really think it's a last minute thing, which I did. And it was like, get up early, do biochem, do pharmacology on the way to the exam center. Then right before going in the exam, then you just let go and calm yourself. And I think the strategy, I was very careful about, and actually I was very worried about the time, because I've not completed the paper before. So I was actually dividing, like, I know there are 200 questions, 3 hours, so it's 180 minutes, then I divide them again, and so basically I knew I had to do 35 questions in 30 minutes. So you cut it down to 30 minutes, how much you have to do in 30 minutes. So that's that was the plan, and I actually wrote it down on the back of my admit card, that if I'm going with it. So that way I had actually this time half an hour for review. So yeah, that worked.
So this way your mock tests help you how to plan your thing, and you knew your weaknesses, that you have lack of time.
I know I have a time. Yeah.
So you had a time structure in your mind and you followed it. Nice. Okay, apart from AIMS, like when you attempt PGI, that's a completely different paper. It's not an online paper, and so how did you go about the PGI exam?
So the thing I like about it not being an online paper is that you have the pen in your hand, so you're always like, and they do a lot of accept and not and everything, so you can always circle it, and it helps. But the thing about PGI is, never mark anything for review. Just don't. You're not going to go back to it. It's not possible. And apart from that, it is quite a race. And again, I think we divide the time in your head at how many minutes, how many questions you have to cover. And if you are pondering upon a option, there is no time. Decide whether you want to mark it or not. Move on. I think the time is a huge issue. If you don't complete the paper, you're nowhere in the rankings. So yeah, complete it. And it's very different because it's factual, and it has a a lot of oncology and a lot of and again repeated topics. They say a lot of repeated topics, a lot of repeated even direct questions. So this is something for which your previous papers are very important. Obviously, because if everybody else is doing previous papers and getting the repeated questions right, you can't afford to get them wrong.
You can't, yeah, true. Okay, so what will be your little special Ananya advice for the students listening?
Okay, so I think be persistent. Have people you can crib to, because you are going to need to a lot, and have an outlet. You don't
True.
think, if you think you're going to, like sit for 6-7 months and, work every hour of every day, you are going to get frustrated, and once you get frustrated, it's very hard to get back. So have an outlet every day and just keep at it. Just be very persistent. Know what you have to do in the end. So
Just keep yourself
yeah.
composed. Nice. Okay, so now that everything is done, what are your plans before you start your residency?
Probably a trip. Yeah.
Awesome. So we would like to say congratulations and
Thank
all the very
you.
best for
Thank
whatever
you.
branch you choose, and hope you're able to choose that wisely. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for being here. Thank you.